Kids, get your popcorn out. Let me tell you the story of the space Viking, Thor Odinson.
When Marvel Studios kicked off the first round of cast announcements for Avengers Doomsday, they did it in a pretty fun way, through the classic chair reveal. And the very first name that popped up on that chair? Chris Hemsworth. That alone was enough to calm down all the guessing and online debates about whether he'd actually return as Thor after his last outing. It was a reassuring moment for fans who have followed the character since 2011, because no matter how people felt about Love and Thunder, everyone agreed the MCU wouldn't feel quite right without him swinging that hammer again. Now, the real excitement started when a massive update hit the internet. Not a photo this time, but an insider claim about Chris being spotted on the Avengers Doomsday set. What made this update blow up so quickly wasn't just that he was there, but the details about his new look. According to the source, Thor's costume this time looks, quote, insane. Something totally fresh for the God of Thunder. Naturally, that sent fans spiraling into theory mode about what version of Thor we might be getting in this movie. The update apparently originated from a small Twitter account going by James MacWL, someone who isn't one of the usual industry insiders people quote when Marvel leaks drop. Still, every time a huge project like an Avengers film is in production, a bunch of new scoop accounts seem to pop up, and sometimes one of them ends up being spot on. So it's worth taking seriously, especially because this person claimed to have seen Chris Hemsworth in full costume. According to the post, Hemsworth was spotted wearing short blonde hair, a trimmed beard, and a red hooded cape, a pretty bold combination that immediately sparked conversation. That description lines up perfectly with a specific version of Thor from the comics, the Unworthy Thor storyline from 2016-2017. Fans of that run instantly recognize those details because in that arc, Thor sports a much rougher, stripped-down look after losing his worthiness to wield Mjolnir. It's interesting because the MCU already borrowed a bunch of visual inspiration from the Unworthy Thor years ago. Remember Thor Ragnarok? The short hair, the trimmed beard, and that asymmetrical cape already hinted at this aesthetic. Even though it wasn't a direct adaptation of that storyline, it felt heavily influenced by it. So if Marvel is drawing from it again, it might just be for style rather than story. Besides, Thor's entire character arc from the first movie to Endgame has revolved around worthiness, losing it, regaining it, and then realizing what it truly means. We saw him question himself after Infinity War when he didn't stop Thanos in time, only to later prove in Endgame that he was still worthy when he summoned Mjolnir from the past. That was a huge emotional moment because it showed he hadn't lost who he was, so it wouldn't make much sense for the MCU to suddenly revisit the unworthy angle again. It's much more likely that Marvel's costume designers are just using the Unworthy Thor look as inspiration, rather than fully retelling that comic arc. They've done that before, borrowing design elements from across decades of comics without actually adapting the story itself. That approach gives the films a fresh look while keeping the character's emotional journey consistent. But what's really intriguing is how this all might connect to the multiverse storyline that's driving the next phase of Marvel movies. Avengers: Secret Wars is expected to bring together a bunch of alternate versions of characters, and in the comics, there's even something called the Thor Corps, a team of Thors from different universes all working together. It's unlikely that Avengers Doomsday will dive fully into that, but Secret Wars could absolutely go there. That means there's room for Chris Hemsworth's mainline Thor, the one from the MCU's core timeline Earth-616, to stand alongside other versions of himself from alternate realities. Still, everything about this leak suggests the Thor we'll see in Doomsday is our Thor, not a variant, not a reboot, but the same hero we've been following all along. Now, fans have also been hoping Marvel might eventually bring in one of the most powerful versions of Thor ever, Rune King Thor. In the comics, this version achieves ultimate godhood, channeling the full Odin force, and surpassing anything we've seen from him before. Back in Ragnarok, there were already a few subtle hints in that direction. Thor losing his eye and unlocking his full lightning powers felt like a small nod to that transformation. Even though the MCU hasn't confirmed whether he's reached that stage yet, Thor's power level has clearly continued to grow. He's easily among the most powerful Avengers now, right up there with Captain Marvel and the upcoming Sentry. Of course, Loki as the god of stories exists on an entirely different level, but Thor's evolution isn't done yet. There's still plenty of space for him to ascend to that higher state, possibly by the end of Secret Wars. And that leads to another big topic among fans: what happens after these two Avengers movies? There have been strong rumors about Marvel developing Thor 5, which would continue his journey and potentially show him stepping into Odin's role as the Allfather. That move would make perfect sense in story because it would allow the MCU to introduce new Thor-like heroes such as Beta Ray Bill or even Hercules, who was teased at the end of Love and Thunder. If Thor does become the Allfather, those characters could take over the role of the active godly warrior while he serves as more of a cosmic leader. It would be a fitting evolution for the character after all the personal and emotional growth he's gone through. There's also been plenty of speculation about whether Thor will actually survive Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. Early on, people assumed Marvel might give him a big heroic send-off, possibly even killing him off to make way for new heroes. But with so much chatter about Thor 5, it's hard to imagine that happening anytime soon. Even if Thor were to fall in battle, that doesn't necessarily mean the end of Chris Hemsworth's time in the MCU. After all, we've already seen that Valhalla, the realm of fallen warriors, is not exactly the end. The post-credit scene in Love and Thunder showed Jane Foster arriving there after her sacrifice, and in the comics, she later returns as a Valkyrie. That sets a precedent for Thor himself to possibly die, ascend to Valhalla, and then return later, maybe even as the Allfather. So whether Thor lives or dies in these upcoming Avengers films, there's a strong chance it won't be his final appearance. In fact, it could just be the next step in his transformation into something even greater. Marvel loves poetic cycles, and Thor's story has always been about death, rebirth, and rediscovery. Coming back to the costume itself, the short hair, the hood, and the rugged tone could be a symbolic way of showing that Thor has matured past his playful phase. It's not about being unworthy anymore, it's about being grounded. The MCU has a tendency to reflect character growth through costume evolution, and this could easily be one of those cases. And although the leak might sound small, these design choices often reveal a lot about where the story is headed. In this case, it feels like Thor might be entering a more serious era again, maybe even taking on a leadership role among the heroes. With so many new characters joining the MCU, from the Young Avengers to mutants to cosmic entities, Thor's experience as both a warrior and a god makes him one of the few figures capable of uniting everyone when things get chaotic. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.